They found her in the front trunk of a Tesla, not in a forest, not in an alley, not buried somewhere far away, inside a car connected to one of the fastest rising young singers in America. For months, that Tesla had sat under the California sun while a family searched for answers, while fans streamed the music, while old lyrics played across millions of phones, and while the world still thought D4VD was only the boy behind Romantic Homicide. But when investigators opened that car, the story changed forever. Because the girl inside was not a rumor. She was not a headline. She was Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was 14 years old, and prosecutors now say her death was not random. They say it was tied to a secret relationship, a rising career, and a threat that came days before everything collapsed. David Anthony Burke, known to millions as D4VD, has pleaded not guilty. His lawyers say the evidence will show he did not murder Celeste and was not the cause of her death. But the charges against him are among the most serious in California. First-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, unlawful mutilation of human remains, and special circumstances that could make this a death penalty case. This is North American Case Files. If you want clear, careful, evidence-based true crime stories, like this video and subscribe now, because this case is still moving through court, and every new filing matters. The story begins in September of 2025, when a Tesla that had been parked for a long time in the Hollywood Hills was finally towed. The car did not look like the center of a national case. It looked abandoned. But days after it reached a tow yard, workers noticed an odor coming from it. When authorities searched the car, they found human remains inside the front trunk. The car was registered to David Anthony Burke. At first, the public did not know who the victim was. Then came the identification. Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teenage girl from Lake Elsinore, California. A girl whose family had already reported her missing. A girl who, according to prosecutors, had been connected to Burke long before the public ever knew her name. And that is where this case became bigger than a car, bigger than a song, and bigger than a celebrity scandal. Because prosecutors say Celeste and Burke met online when she was 11. They say the relationship developed over time. They say sexual abuse began when she was 13 and Burke was 18. They say she later threatened to expose him, and they say that threat gave him a motive. The official charge announcement from the Los Angeles County District Attorney described the case in chilling terms. According to prosecutors, Celeste was killed after she became a threat to Burke's career. They allege she was a witness against him. They allege she knew too much. And they allege he chose silence over exposure. But before the court filings, before the arrest, before the press conference, there was the music. D4VD became famous through a song that millions heard as heartbreak. Romantic Homicide sounded like pain. It sounded like teenage sadness. It sounded like emotional detachment after a breakup. That was how fans received it. That was how playlists absorbed it. That was how the internet made it viral. But after Celeste was found, people went back. They replayed the lyrics. They watched old interviews. They searched old posts. They looked at deleted clips. And suddenly, the public began asking a dangerous question. Were people hearing art? Or were they ignoring warning signs? That question matters for the story, but it must be handled carefully. Lyrics are not evidence of murder. Dark posts are not proof of guilt. A public persona is not a conviction. The courtroom decides guilt, not the comment section. But public material shaped the way this case exploded, because Burke had built his fame around themes of love, emotional damage, obsession, and death. The competitor transcript leans heavily on that structure. It begins with public words, then moves toward hidden reality. It keeps asking what people missed. That pacing works because it does not start with childhood or biography. It starts with the shock. Then it pulls the audience backward. That is the structure this script will follow. A car, a body, a rising star, a secret relationship, a threat, a death, a long silence, and then the arrest. By 2022, David Anthony Burke was becoming one of the most unusual breakout artists in modern music. He was young. He was internet native. He built part of his early audience through gaming culture. He recorded music in a simple home setup. He did not rise through the old industry path. He rose through TikTok, streams, and a song that sounded raw enough to feel private. Romantic homicide became his signature. By the time the world learned Celeste's name, that title had taken on a meaning no one could ignore. Again, the song itself does not prove a crime. But in true crime storytelling, public context matters when it explains why the case gripped millions. Fans had connected deeply to the song. They had treated it as emotional release. They had used it for heartbreak edits, sad videos, and personal pain. Then the owner of that song became the defendant in a murder case involving a teenage girl. The emotional whiplash was instant. People felt tricked. People felt disturbed. People wanted to know whether the darkness had always been performance or whether something darker had been hiding behind the performance. Then, investigators moved from public shock to legal claims. According to prosecutors, Celeste and Burke's connection began years before the Tesla was found. They allege Celeste was 11 when they met.
They allege she was 13 when the sexual relationship began. They allege her family reported her missing more than once. They allege Burke knew she was underage. And they allege he continued the relationship anyway. That is the foundation of the case, not the song, not the internet theories, not the old posts. The legal case rests on evidence prosecutors say they found in messages, records, timelines, and physical findings. One of the most important alleged facts is the timeline before Celeste's death. Prosecutors say she learned Burke had been involved with other women. They say she became upset. They say she threatened to expose him. And they say this happened at the worst possible time for him professionally. His album was coming. His career was climbing. His public image mattered. His future depended on what fans, labels, and promoters believed about him. Then, according to prosecutors, Celeste became the one person who could destroy that image. That is where the case turns. Because the prosecution theory is not only that Celeste was killed, it is that she was killed to protect a career. That claim raises the stakes. It changes the story from a private crime into a public mask. On April 23, 2025, prosecutors say Burke arranged for Celeste to come to his Hollywood Hills home. She was 14. She did not return home. The medical examiner later ruled her death a homicide caused by multiple penetrating injuries. That finding gave the case its official cause and manner of death. But it did not answer the question that matters most to a jury. Who caused it? The prosecution says Burke did. The defense says he did not. That conflict is the heart of the coming trial. After April 23rd, the timeline becomes one of silence. Prosecutors allege Burke took steps to hide what happened. They allege her body was placed in the Tesla. They allege the vehicle sat for months before it was discovered. They allege this was not panic alone, but concealment. The defense will challenge that. They will likely attack the timeline, the forensic interpretation, the digital evidence, the meaning of messages, and the connection between Burke and the cause of death. That is why the preliminary hearing matters. It is not the trial. It is the stage where a judge decides whether there is enough evidence to move forward. But the public already knows one thing. Celeste disappeared. Her remains were found in a car connected to Burke, and prosecutors believe the evidence points to him. By September 2025, the case finally broke open. The Tesla had been parked near the Hollywood Hills. Neighbors reportedly noticed it. The car was eventually towed. At the tow yard, workers noticed the smell. Then came the discovery. This is the moment the documentary should return to again and again because it holds the central horror without needing graphic detail. A teenage girl was missing. A celebrity's car was sitting in plain sight, and the truth was hidden in the one place no fan thought to look. When Celeste was identified, the internet became its own archive. People searched everything. They went through songs. They went through videos. They went through interviews. They went through old social posts. They found material that seemed disturbing in hindsight. Some posts were confirmed through screenshots and public discussion. Some circulated without clear verification. So the script must separate atmosphere from evidence. Say this clearly. The internet found things that disturbed people. But public reaction is not the same as proof. The case will be decided by evidence in court. That line protects the script from speculation. It also makes the narration more credible. Because the strongest true crime stories do not need wild claims. They need discipline. The facts are already heavy enough.
By April 2026, the investigation reached its next major public turn. David Anthony Burke was arrested. Days later, the Los Angeles County District Attorney announced formal charges. The DA said Burke was charged with murdering Celeste. The DA also announced allegations tied to sexual abuse and mutilation of human remains. Special circumstances were attached to the murder charge. Those special circumstances matter because they show how prosecutors frame the case. Lying in wait, murder for financial gain, murder of a witness. Each allegation points to a different part of the prosecution theory. Lying in wait suggests planning. Financial gain suggests career protection. Murder of a witness suggests Celeste represented legal danger to him. Together, those allegations create a prosecution narrative. Celeste was not only killed, prosecutors say, she was silenced. But Burke's defense immediately pushed back. His lawyers said the evidence would show he did not murder Celeste and was not responsible for her death. That statement matters. It must be included, because this is still an active criminal case. No jury has convicted him, no trial has ended, and every responsible script must say he is presumed innocent unless proven guilty. That does not weaken the story, it strengthens it, because the tension now becomes legal as well as emotional. The audience is not only asking what happened, they are asking what prosecutors can prove. They are asking what the defense will challenge. They are asking what evidence has not yet been made public. And they are asking how a girl could vanish into the orbit of a famous young man without the world seeing her clearly. That question sits at the center of Celeste's story. She was not famous. She did not have millions of followers. She was a child from a community that loved her. But once her name became connected to D4VD, the public conversation risked turning her into an accessory to his story. That cannot happen here. Celeste is not the twist. Celeste is the victim. She had a family. She had siblings. She had a life. She had people who searched for her. She had people who stood outside court and demanded justice. The case is about what happened to her, not only what happened to his career. And that is where the middle of the documentary should breathe. After the legal timeline is established, the script should slow down and return to the human cost. A family reported their daughter missing. Months passed. A car sat. The music continued. The public knew nothing. Then, one discovery forced everyone to catch up at once. If you are watching North American Case Files and you value true crime told with care, like this video and subscribe. Cases like this need facts, not rumors. They need timelines, not noise. And they need the victim's name remembered clearly. The most disturbing part of this case is how long the truth stayed hidden. From April to September, Celeste's family did not have the answer they needed. The public did not know the car held evidence. Fans did not know the artist they streamed would later be charged in a murder case. And Burke, according to prosecutors, continued moving through the public world while the secret remained buried in private. That contrast creates the strongest documentary tension. Public life on one side, private evidence on the other. On one side, songs, interviews, albums, and career movement. On the other, a missing girl, a parked Tesla, and a family waiting. The story does not need invented drama. The timeline already carries it. The prosecution says Burke's career was central to motive. That claim must be handled with precision. Do not say he killed her because of his career as a fact. Say prosecutors allege he killed her because she threatened to expose conduct that could damage his career. That wording matters. It keeps the script accurate. It keeps it fair. It keeps it safe. It also makes the story more chilling because the claim is clear enough without exaggeration. The district attorney's public statement framed Celeste as a child and Burke as someone accused of exploiting and then silencing her. That is the legal story prosecutors will try to prove. The defense will try to break it apart. They may argue the evidence does not show Burke caused her death. They may argue the prosecution is building too much around motive. They may argue other explanations exist. They may challenge the forensic timeline. They may challenge the interpretation of messages. They may challenge whether the state can prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt. That phrase is everything, beyond a reasonable doubt.
The internet does not need that standard. A jury does.
And that is why the ending of this documentary should not say the case is solved. It should say the case has entered its most important phase. The public shock already happened. The arrest already happened. The charges already happened. Now the evidence has to survive court. In the competitor transcript, the strongest retention device is the return to old words. Lyrics, posts, interviews, public statements. The transcript asks whether people missed signs because they were packaged as art. That is a compelling angle, but the safer version is this. After Celeste was identified, D4VD's public image was re-examined through a new lens. Songs that once sounded like heartbreak began to sound different to many listeners. Old comments and posts became part of the public conversation. But the legal case does not depend on whether a lyric sounds disturbing. It depends on evidence. That line should appear in the script because it prevents defamation risk. Still, the public reaction matters. It shows how the audience experienced the case. People were not only horrified by the charges, they were horrified by the feeling that the story had been hiding in plain sight. A song title, a public persona, a hidden relationship, a missing child, a Tesla. When those pieces connected, the internet felt like it had watched a mask fall. But again, a mask falling online is not a verdict. The court must decide what happened. The official court process now becomes the next suspense point. Burke has pleaded not guilty. He is being held without bail. Prosecutors have described a large evidence volume. The defense has asked for time to review materials. A preliminary hearing is expected to test whether the case proceeds toward trial. This is where future updates matter, because new filings may reveal more about the alleged digital evidence, forensic findings, travel records, messages, phone data, and witness statements. For a documentary, this is the clean ending path. Do not end with shock alone. End with the unanswered question. What will the evidence prove? That question keeps the audience invested without claiming more than the public record supports. Now, bring the story back to Celeste. The case began publicly with a car, but it should end with her name. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 14. Her death was ruled a homicide. Her family lost a daughter. Her community grieved her. And now, the state of California says the person responsible is David Anthony Burke. He denies it. His lawyers deny it. The courtroom will decide it. But no verdict will undo the fact that a child is gone. No argument can return the months her family spent searching. No headline can restore what was taken from them. And no song, no fame, no public image should ever become bigger than the victim at the center of the case. So the question is not only whether prosecutors can prove David Burke killed Celeste. The question is how a child became invisible inside the life of someone so visible. How did she move through that world without the public knowing who she was? How did her name only become known after the worst possible discovery? And how many warning signs only look obvious after it is too late? This is North American Case Files. If you want the next update when the hearing moves forward, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this case is not over. The evidence has not finished speaking, and Celeste's story deserves to be followed carefully, factually, and until the final answer is known.